Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Empowering Musicians podcast. I am your host, Michael Manley, and I'm very excited for today. I have the first concert of the Desert Winds, which is a wind orchestra, an award-winning wind orchestra based here in Las Vegas and Henderson. And we have our first concert tonight. And I have been spending a lot of time this last year helping build the organization from behind the scenes. As many of you know, if you've ever started your own group or you're a student who's looking to go into the professional world, a lot of times we have these institutional opportunities like an orchestra that you might audition for and win a job with, but you may have a passion for chamber music or for education, and you may want to start your own nonprofit. And so the Desert Winds is part of a nonprofit called the Making Music Matter Foundation. And as with any nonprofit, we don't cover our costs with just what we sell, right? With just ticket sales or fees for, seminars or educational work. We have to have we have to have contributed revenue as well as that earned income from ticket sales and things like this. So I've been thinking a lot about building nonprofits and what that takes. And one of the biggest things is, of course, fundraising, right? Getting that contributed income that's going to allow you not only to cover your costs for what you're currently doing, but how are you going to grow? So if you are thinking about starting a nonprofit, if you've started your own nonprofit, if you have a goal of wanting to, serve your community through playing contemporary chamber music or whatever the angle is of what you want to do, this is a really good episode for you because we're going to go deep into some of these best practices of getting those contributions. So again, why do we need contributed income? Well, again, most nonprofits do not sustain themselves, right, on that earned revenue. So on that earned revenue. So ticket sales for performing arts organizations, no matter how high the ticket price is for the Metropolitan Opera, they're never going to cover their costs with just ticket sales. It's just too big of a production. It just costs too much money. So how do we get these donations, right? So we have to ask, right? That's the biggest thing. So today we're going to talk about what that means to ask for a donation. A lot of musicians, a lot of artists are like, I just want to play my instrument. I don't really want to ask for money. I'm not comfortable with it. And that's okay if you're in a big orchestra and you don't ever have to worry about that. But again, if you want to start your own ensemble, or maybe you're one of a principal player in an orchestra who has some connection to donors and the institution wants you to show up at a donor dinner or play a concert in someone's home. All of these things are important, right? Whether we're earning for our own organization or whether we're trying to get support for an institution that we're already with. So what are the kinds of things we have? We have individual donations, we have corporate sponsorships, we have grants. These are all resources that we need if we are in the nonprofit sector. So I need money for, we need money for Making Music Matter Foundation, let's say. So I'm not going to just, send out a letter saying, hey, we're here, we need some cash, right? We need money. Here's what we need. I'm going to tell people what the mission of the organization is. I'm going to give them a sense of what the story is, right? Because people are going to contribute to your mission and your story and the impact that you're making. They're not necessarily going to contribute because you have a need, right? So we have to make it clear what is our mission and what is our story. So again, I'm using this organization, Making Music Matter Foundation, as an example for today. And I had my good friend Chuck McGuire on as a guest a few weeks back, and he is the founder of this organization. And so when I talk to folks about why I'm involved, I tell them the story about how I was, as a favor to a friend who was a conductor out in LA, a composer conductor. He had a side gig conducting a community band. And so I played with that community band, and it was not a very good group, right? It was just kind of an okay group of mostly amateur players. But Chuck came in once as our guest conductor, and I was just blown away at the amount of progress he was getting out of this ensemble and the amount of music making that was at an extremely high level. And so I was like, I've got to see what this guy's about. When I got back to Las Vegas, I checked out his Desert Winds group, which was part of Making Music Matter Foundation, and I was just blown away at the level and of performances they were giving. So that's how I connected. And I also, having lived in Las Vegas before, was really passionate about building the arts here. I had seen the city growing, and people like myself who had moved to Las Vegas and did a show or did a performance or joined a production that was already up and running. And after a few years, the production closed, and all of these great artists who were living and teaching in the community had left town, right? So it seemed to me that part of the mission and part of the story for me of wanting to support this organization was because we have to create opportunities for artists to live and work in Las Vegas. We have a reputation as a city of being kind of just a playground, right? But there are people that live here, right, that work here. We have a huge culinary scene, which nobody knows about yet. They're learning. We have people that live and work here, and they do support the arts. They read books, and we want to have opportunities to keep artists here. So part of the mission and part of the story that I tell is that, yes, my connection is through one of the Making Music Matter Foundation initiatives, which is the Desert Winds, right? It's our flagship performing group. Again, we have our concert tonight, which I'm going to plug a little later. But I'm not sure that the funding community is going to support just the artistic excellence of that group, as great as it is, right? So we also have a band camp called Band Camp Reimagined, which aims to send any student in Clark County here in Las Vegas or Henderson to a summer band camp that's a week-long, free of tuition if necessary, right? So we want to be able to create a barrier-less access for arts education, which is a really great mission, right, for a lot of people. We also have a youth wind orchestra called the Honor Winds, which again, we eventually want to make tuition free, right? We want any kid who's able and willing and wants to perform in an ensemble to be able to join, right? And then we have another performing arts initiative called Chamber Music, right? Chambers, which is our chamber program. And again, for me, I love the idea of having performance opportunities for some of the really talented musicians and teachers in town who maybe don't have a lot of opportunities to perform as an ensemble. But I know that the thing that's going to be compelling to certain people is going to be the education work that we do. And all of it's tied together, right? All of our teachers at our Band Camp Reimagined are also going to be performing in the ensemble, right? And they also might be conducting our youth orchestra. So it's kind of an ecosystem that I think is really worth supporting. So I've been engaged with this. And so I've been thinking, again, a lot about this topic because of this work that I've been doing. And again, people aren't going to donate if you just state a need. They're going to want to know what your story is, what is the mission, right? And so my mission for this organization is to build the arts infrastructure of Las Vegas and Henderson through providing performance and teaching opportunities for some of our high-level musicians, and also serving students through free education whenever possible, right? So this is something that people want to get behind, right? The idea that we want to reach kids. And I tell my own story, right, about when I was growing up. I remember going to an arts camp. The tuition was, it wasn't outrageous, but for my family, it wasn't cheap. And it was 3 hours away, right? So we want to eliminate all of those barriers of access to education. So again, having that compelling mission and story to tell. Also, what I think is useful is having a personal mission, right? And how your personal mission aligns with the mission of your nonprofit. So I spent a lot of work last year thinking about my mission with a coach named Martin Coward, who was really excellent at helping us come up with that North Star. What is it that motivates us to do what we do? And so my mission that I came up with after, a couple weeks of tweaking was that I serve the world through music. And what I do is I empower and educate musicians and performing artists. So this idea that I create this world of harmony and artistic transformation by empowering and educating musicians and performing artists has become kind of like my log line. Okay, so all of the work that I do in my professional life, all of the work that I do in my artistic life, and all of the work that I'm doing in my podcast and entrepreneurial work is all aligned with that, right? So I'm helping a nonprofit build. I'm performing in that nonprofit. I'm an educator, right? I have a couple students. I also work in the labor field with the arts. And all of these things are connected, right? They're all part of that same mission. So if you have that individual mission statement and you can tie that back into what you're doing, that's also really important. And it's, again, people are going to donate to your mission and your impact and your story, not necessarily for your need, right? So I just want to say as an aside, like, artistic excellence is really important to me, right? For any organization that I play with. And I'm really impressed by the artistic level of our performing arts organization, which is the Desert Winds, right? Our ensemble. But folks are not necessarily going to donate for that reason, but they're going to come to a concert and they're going to be like, wow, that was an amazing experience. And this is part of this larger nonprofit that I'm supporting because my motivation is education. And it all sort of like ties together. So, but, the problem or the challenge of performing arts is that you do need donations and you do need to grow financially to be able to perform together more, to have more concerts, to pay your artists, right? Like, so our organization is very tiny and it's mostly volunteer. And the quality for a mostly volunteer organization for me is like astounding. I just can't believe how good this ensemble is, given that it's mostly volunteer, but I want it to be eventually a fully paid organization, right? And so that means growing all of these wings of what we do and making the case of how the performing arts aspect of what we do feeds the education, right? And you have to know what to ask for. And this is the part where you really need a lot of research and you need a lot of data. So I'll give an example of, I was working in a fellowship and I was in actually Sioux Falls, South Dakota for about, 2 months. And it was in the middle of winter. And so I really got a taste of what it was like to be in South Dakota in the middle of winter. And it was a lot of snow and it was freezing. And when I was there, the orchestra, the South Dakota Symphony was trying to plan their galas and get their small donations of $1,000 here or there, or whatever that they did. And that, they had corporate support as well. And they had a very healthy, robust fundraising plan that involved individual donations, sponsorships, grants, and corporate giving and all of those things. And while I was there, there was a single donor who gave $100 million to a hospital system in Sioux Falls, right? So, what's the right ask for that donor, right? maybe there is a corporation in your town that is looking to partner with an organization and transform education, and they have $5 million to give out, right? And you go to them and you ask for a $5,000 donation, right? Maybe that's not the right ask. Similarly, right? Like if somebody comes to me and says, I would love for you to join our board, and it's a $25,000 donation to join, I wouldn't be the right person for that because I just don't make that kind of money, right? They should ask me for $25 or $50 or something as a start, right? So knowing the amount and why we're asking is really important, because people are going to have different, different motivations for giving. And I remember, I'll give a personal example. So we in Las Vegas had a gentleman named Tony Hsieh, who was the CEO of Zappos for many years and a venture capitalist, extremely transformative figure here in Las Vegas, and was really interested in transforming the experience of community, especially downtown in Las Vegas. And I remember he did the Lincoln Portrait with the symphony orchestra when he first got here, which is a piece for orchestra and narration. And it turned out that Tony Hsieh hated one thing more than any other, which was speaking in public, right? So wrong ask for this gentleman, but he had a connection to music. He played French horn in school. So again, knowing who your donors are and knowing what interests them, right? And instead of saying, we want you to narrate the Lincoln Portrait on our concert, you say, hey, we know that you're interested in transforming downtown Las Vegas. How can we support that, right? So knowing what to ask and knowing how serving your organization through donations and support will support the mission of your funder is also really important. Where is the money going and why do you need it now, right? And being able to show a budget. So one of the things that, again, we have a band camp that we do. We need money. We have teachers, we have conductors, we have facilities. We have 300 or 400 students that are coming in for a week, and all of that takes money, right? But if I make an ask to a donor and just say, would you like to fund band camp, right? How much do you need? Where's the money going, right? You have to be able to answer these questions, and you have to have, I think, a variety of different ways to connect. So we are thinking about a fundraising event later in October and coming up with 3 to 4, probably 3 levels that people can give at, right? And so if you give us $100, you can fund a band camp students' lunch for the whole week, right? We want to be able to offer free lunch for all of our students. $100 will let us do that. $350 will create a scholarship that lets a child of need attend band camp for free. $500 will fund a coach, an instrument coach, who is going to be at band camp coaching the sectionals for either clarinets, flutes, percussion, etc. $1,000 would hire a conductor for the entire week of band camp, right? Pay for one of our conductors. So giving people a picture of where their money's going and why you're asking for that amount, and making an offer, especially if you don't know the donor very well, right? So this event that I'm discussing is a kind of preview event where we're connecting with people who have no connection to our organization. So we're going to have a student ensemble play. We're going to have a brass quintet made up of players from our larger ensemble, the Desert Winds play, and giving people an experience of our nonprofit, right, and what we do. And then inviting them to engage by saying, if you would like to help our organization or learn more or attend a concert, and if you want to engage further, here is where the resources we need and where our money goes, right? So being able to figure out what that amount is that you need and being able to justify it, right? And showing how it impacts the community. Where are the dollars going? Why do you need it now? And then how does it align with the vision and mission of your donors, right? So what motivates them to donate? What have they donated to before? If there's a corporation in your town or a business, what is it that interests them, right? So if you have a car manufacturer or a tire manufacturer, let's say, maybe they're really engaged with driving safety, right? And you have a nonprofit that is aimed at eliminating drunk driving, right? There might be a real alignment there because there's a link between the mission of that for-profit organization and their business and your nonprofit. And then I want to think about transactional versus transformational giving, right? So again, if somebody's calling, a large nonprofit's going to have phone banking, they're going to get small donations. I might give $50 to the Metropolitan Opera or to the New York Philharmonic because I like what their mission is. That money is not going to be that transformative for them, right? But they are going to thank me for it, and they're going to be extremely grateful. And I'm just going to give it because I support what they do, right? It's pretty transactional, right? The most transactional giving that I've done, I can give you a very good example, was at the Metropolitan Opera. And I was a regular Met goer, and the Metropolitan Opera in New York City has extremely long intermissions. So a 3-hour opera is actually a 4.5-hour opera because there's so much time between acts. And so I discovered that for a donation of $500, you could get access to a patron lounge, right? And I thought, well, you know what? Over a year, it's kind of maybe going to be worth it because of all the time that I'm going to spend during intermission, right? And I'll be able to buy a cocktail or sit down and not have to just hang out in the lobby, the gorgeous lobby, but still it's a lobby. There's not a lot of chairs. And so I just made the calculation in my mind that was, that was worth doing. I was like, okay, for that amount of money, for that benefit, I think it's worth it, right? So I did that one season, and that was extremely transactional, right? I was looking at my money, what I was sort of getting in return, right? Versus, again, I come back to South Dakota, like somebody gave the hospital system $100 million, right? Now that person wanted to have a transformative experience with their donation, right? They were interested in making an impact that was profound in their community. And so that person is not the person who's going to necessarily donate $1,000. They want their money to make a huge impact. And so the hospital system had the right people making the case for their mission and the impact, and they got that one donor, again, to give them $100 million. So we have to remember that in the arts, it's really easy to think about what our immediate needs are and lose the larger vision. And so this is something that, again, I think is really important that I'm dealing with our organization, Making Music Matter Foundation. It's like, yes, this is how much it's going to cost us to finish out the concerts for the year, and we need to cover that cost. But what if our mission is to offer 2 weeks of band camp versus one? What if we want to add a concert series? What if we want to play our concert in 3 different locations? What if we want to pay all of our artists, right? Like that's a long-term goal. We have to have that vision, and we have to be able to grow. And so it's not just about covering our immediate costs, right? It's also about funding that vision long-term. So I'm going to sort of close with another piece of advice over getting over your fear of asking for money, right? Again, not comfortable asking for money. I just want to play my instrument, right? Why can't I just do that? Why can't I just show up and play, a really great string quartet and just have people give me money because they love it, right? Well, you have to be able to tell your story. You have to be able to make the ask. And so my good friend Janice was talking the other day about how she was engaged with fundraising through the scouting program, Boy Scouts of America. And they had done some fundraising training. And she was like, what I learned was that I wasn't asking people for money, right? I was asking them to share our vision and share our growth and success. I'm giving them an opportunity to be part of this transformative nonprofit, right? So when you think about it that way, when you think about, I'm not asking somebody for a handout, I'm giving them an opportunity to help us transform our community through this nonprofit. And why would I want to rob them of that opportunity, right? And the worst thing that can happen is somebody can say no. It's not going to be the end of the world, right? It's often a no for now. It's often not a no forever. And it might be a no because you have that equation wrong. Maybe you're asking for the wrong amount of money or the wrong thing. The last thing I want to say is don't discount the actual donation of time and skill. So somebody may not have a lot of resources, right? And they may not be the person that are gonna be able to give you $100, $500, $1,000, right? But they might have a skill and they might be willing to donate their time, and that is huge, because especially for small nonprofits that are growing, volunteers are going to be hugely important for you because you're not going to have a paid staff. So we're at that stage now where we're thinking about who are the volunteers who can really help us build this until we can get grow to a level where we have a paid staff, right? So don't discount volunteers. Know what you're asking for and why, how it connects to the funder's mission and work. And remember that you're asking folks to be part of how you're transforming the community. You're inviting them to be part of your mission. You're not asking for a handout. So I want to thank everybody for attending today's podcast episode. And if you are in the Las Vegas metropolitan area, do check out our Movie Magic concert this evening, which is being given at the Performing Arts Center at Pinecrest Academy at Sloan Canyon down in Henderson. Look for the Making Music Matter Foundation on Instagram or our Facebook group. You'll find how to get tickets to that event. It's going to be 7:30 tonight. It's going to be an amazing concert. John Williams, who doesn't love John Williams? So looking forward to seeing some of you there later. And remember to look for our podcast on Spotify and also on YouTube. And I will see you all next week. Take care.